Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
I'm so glad you're joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers on Jam Master Jay, the man, his music, and the investigation into his murder. Many fans had lost hope that justice would be done, but NYPD's cold case squad would not give up. They cracked the case no one thought would ever be solved. We have an exclusive look at how they did it.
This is a case about a murder that for nearly 2 decades had gone unanswered.
The breaking news that 2 men were under arrest for the 2002 murder of Jason Mizell, known worldwide as Jam Master Jay of Run DMC, was as unexpected as it was welcome. The shooting death of the hip-hop icon in his Jamaica, Queens recording studio nearly 20 years ago devastated fans of Run DMC, the first group to bring hip-hop to an international audience and have a rap album go gold, all with their unique Queens street style. It meant a lot to law enforcement as well.
Me being a native of Queens and being a big fan of Run DMC and Jam Master Jay, making this arrest was very, very important to me.
Soon after the murder, detectives hit one roadblock after another, with a no-snitching street code of silence compelling potential witnesses not to talk to cops. In 2015, the flatlining investigation was turned over to the NYPD's cold case squad. I sat down with Lieutenant Commander Dennis Klein to find out how they got new leads when all roads had been dead ends.
Detective Haber first located the case, and the detective that originally had the case, he went over his notes. He actually, conferred with him, and he revisited all the witnesses that were interviewed at the time, the 911 callers.
When there was someone who might know something, they did not take no for an answer and sought out information wherever it happened to be.
We went across the country to interview different people, witnesses, many different locations.
They also got a boost from advancements in technology and forensics, like state-of-the-art DNA testing done in the city medical examiner's crime labs.
He went and looked at the crime scene photos. He took those crime scene photos and he studied them. He brought them to the OCME's office. They went through, they retested things that maybe were not tested, or the technology were able to have us test today that wasn't available back in 2002.
Another break came when federal agents and prosecutors investigating a drug trafficking ring got involved. Their work, plus evidence compiled by the cold case squad, convinced a federal grand jury to indict Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan Jr. Both Queens men are facing murder while engaged in narcotics trafficking and gun charges. Each defendant could face the death penalty.
And on August 16th, we were able to make the first arrest and the 17th the second arrest, and both the bad guys are indicted.
Prosecutors allege the 2 suspects went to Jam Master Jay's recording studio on October 30th, 2002 with guns. Court documents state Jordan fired 2 shots, with 1 bullet striking the world-famous DJ in the head. Authorities say the motive was a drug deal gone bad after Mizell acquired 10 kilos of cocaine and decided to cut Washington out of it. However unsettling the circumstances, the cold case squad stayed focused on the victim who lost his life and those who loved him.
They take this to heart, that they put everything they have into these cases to solve them. There's nothing more gratifying than to solve an old murder. That the family suffered through many years.
Jam Master Jay's achievements in hip-hop remain extraordinary to this day. Let's find out what he was really like and his place in hip-hop culture with our panel. Joining me is Chuck Creekmer. He is the CEO and co-founder of allhiphop.com. Chuck, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is the one and only Marley Marl. He is a Grammy Award-winning producer. He's a WBLS DJ. We featured him in a solo piece on Fox 5 News at 10. He's also a hip-hop legend. And if you don't know, now you know. Marley Marl, thank you for being with us.
Honored to be here this evening.
We appreciate it. Also joining us is Dr. Robert Gonzalez. He's a criminal justice professor at St. John's University, former NYPD training commissioner, and has his own unique connection with the hip-hop community. Rob, great to have you with us.
Great, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us. Chuck, first let's talk about October 30th, 2002, when Jam Master Jay's life was taken. Where were you?
I know exactly where I was on that terrible day. I was at a concert with none other than Big Daddy Kane, who Marley Marl knows all too well. And we were at a show enjoying ourselves. I was with my best friend, Chris, and Big Daddy Kane got on stage and made the announcement that something terrible had happened to Jam Master Jay. You know, he really did say, it was kind of vague, but we knew he had died and had been murdered. And I think everything else at that point kind of just went blurry, and we were just completely blindsided, and I don't know, that nothing's really been the same since.
And the whole vibe must have just totally changed.
Yeah, definitely.
Like a switch. Marley, where were you? And we're going to talk about how you knew him and touring and all that, but just where were you on that day?
Basically, I was at home, and I got a call from the program director. I was working at 105 at the point, and they was like, hey, nobody wants to go on the air. Do you want to go on the air and calm the city down about it? I was like, all right. You know, Jay was my man. I felt at best, that's what I definitely had to do. So I went on the air on Power 105 and was taking calls from people, you know, calling and venting out their frustrations of, you know, the murder of Jam Master Jay. And it was a very incredible night, because that night showed me how the world really felt about Jam Master Jay. You know, sometimes when you behind the, you know, scenes and you doing your thing and you working out with a crew like that, and you just, you know, you doing your shows, you don't know the real impact that you're making, you know. And he was a bad boy on those turntables.
Definitely. What kinds of things were people saying as you were fielding those calls, and people were in shock?
People were like, yo, I can't believe this. How could this happen? You know, it's like, wow, you know, Jam Master Jay is such a legend. He was like so real in the street. I had like Jamaica Queens was calling up. Everybody was like, yo, he went back to the neighborhood. You know, he never left the neighborhood. He put a studio in the hood. He was getting hood cats, you know, giving cats deals, you know, bringing people up. You know, how could this happen? You know, he was a good brother. You know, I mean, it was a very sad moment in hip hop.
No, definitely. And he did. He had that strong tie with the community that he kept, you know, even after all the fame and touring around the world and all the accolades.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the New York City area, I mean, the world was shocked. But, you know, when I was on the air and straight here in New York City dealing with the people straight on, it was like a lot of sadness. People was really upset, because you got to look at what Run DMC did for hip hop.
Right.
You know, they opened the doors. They was like the first ones to go pop in hip hop, if you know what I mean. So, you know, they crossed the bridges for every rapper today that's out there making it and doing their thing and got that pop crossover crowd. You got to thank Run DMC, because they were actually the first ones to bring that into fruition.
Right, exactly. Like with Walk This Way, and we're going to talk about that too. That brought it into a whole other area with the genre crossing. But Dr. Rob Gonzalez, you were with the NYPD for many years after his murder, which people were very shocked about, because this wasn't a gangster rapper. This wasn't a guy that was talking about, you know, doing things in the streets, gang life, or anything like that. People were very shocked about it. But there was also, from investigators that I spoke with at the time when I was covering the story for Fox 5 News, nobody was talking. So when you hear now, 18 years later, that there have been arrests, what's your take on that?
Well, usually when you're dealing with high profile, especially rappers specifically, there's always a different, you know, various conspiracy theories as to what the motive was. In this particular case, it went from everything from maybe a romantic situation that went bad to maybe a drug deal gone bad to maybe someone, as it relates to issues within the industry itself. You know, so there were a lot of different theories. In this particular case, because you're dealing with a situation where you have, you know, two witnesses now that are actually cooperating. We're realizing that it was a drug, you know, drug sale gone bad. And usually when you deal with those situations, a lot of times there's a reluctance for people to cooperate. You know, there was a reluctance to cooperate for many different reasons. People were reluctant because they didn't want to tarnish his legacy in the industry, come up with fake theories. So there was reluctance for people to cooperate. There was also the danger of people cooperating, because now we know, based on the information so far, that this was a drug enterprise, so to speak, right? So there's always a reluctance for people to cooperate anytime you have high-level narcotics enterprises.
Chuck, his status as an icon, too. it just kind of hurts all the way around. There's the loss, and then there's the fact that he came from that era when artists were not as much about their, more about their business than they were about the beats. You know what I'm saying? So what did you think when you heard that there had been an arrest in this case?
I mean, I was really relieved. I mean, it felt good. This is almost like an open wound for anyone that grew up on Run DMC and Jam Master Jay. They were the first superheroes in hip hop. And Lisa, you know how much I love, superheroes, but,
right.
I have made no mistake about it. Those guys were the superheroes that we could relate to. They walked around. Jay was the anchor of all of it because he was the guy that really gave Run DMC that credibility with the people, with the hood. And at the time, I didn't know that. But as time went on and I got to know Jay and, in particular DMC, I came to realize, just what a special guy and man that Jay was. With All Hip Hop, he was one of our first supporters, really before. Yeah, I mean, he used to come to our events. I don't even have a picture with Jay. And that's the crazy, that's how cool he was. And that's how much I really felt like he was going to always be there.
Marley, from DJ to DJ, we look at people in our own professions a certain kind of way. What struck you about his style and what he did?
Well, basically, when I went on tour with Run DMC, it was directly after the success of Roxanne Shantae's, Roxanne's Revenge. We was thrown into superstardom from out of nowhere. So basically, we was on tour with him. It started out at the Omni. They used to have a place in Atlanta called the Omni. And that's way back in the day. We started out there. And just to see how he would, command the crowd and be the actual band for the DJ. I mean, it taught me a lot. It taught me that, when you get on that stage, when you got 20,000 people screaming, for your name, you got to bring the energy up. So he taught me definitely how to bring that energy up when there's a crowd there. And he was a very commanding dude on the 1 and 2s. He was the band. He was, all the attention was on Jam Master Jay, and he knew it. And he knew how to project it back to the crowd too. So that's what he taught me. It was like, we had real fun times.
Much more on Jam Master Jay's impact. Stay with us. Rob, in terms of the investigation, people were surprised that this turned out to be two individuals that actually knew Jam Master Jay and that he had actually tried to help. What's your take on that?
Well, again, the information going back as early as 2007, they had credible evidence. They were in the process of trying to indict one of these particular individuals at that time. But we know when we're dealing with narcotics cases and gun trafficking cases, there's usually a reluctance for people to cooperate. And what we might find out, and we don't have these details yet, is maybe one of these individuals at some point may be willing to cooperate against the other. Because this is a federal case, you're looking at a death penalty case here. So again, there may be individuals turning on each other. Another individual, one of the two witnesses, could have been arrested for another incident and is now looking to cooperate. So again, when you're dealing with enterprise crimes, such as the level of this particular incident, when they murdered a high-profile rap icon like Jam Master Jay, you can expect that this investigation was never going to go away. Unfortunately, they may have exhausted some leads based on different motives and based on different intel. But now it seems they're back on track. The U.S. attorney from the Eastern District had enough evidence to indict and come down with a 10-count indictment against these two individuals. And I would think that after 18 years, they probably have enough evidence to convict, and we're going to see a lot more details when this goes to trial.
As it comes out, Chuck, when it was announced, I just want to deal with this in as respectful a way as possible to his family and also to the fans and everybody who loved him.
100%.
They said that this was over a beef over drugs, which when we hear about drugs in hip-hop, it's no big shock, but a very large amount, 10 kilos of cocaine, allegedly. In terms of how hard it is, sometimes the people that are super famous are not the people that are getting paid that way, that are making the money. What was your reaction when you heard that?
Well, my reaction was mixed. As you all know, as you can see, I'm a huge Run DMC fan. Like, I love Run DMC and Jam Master Jay. Like, for real. Like, not for real. So, that part of me is conflicted with the other side of me, which is allhiphop.com. If you look at All Hip Hop, you look at the archives, and you'll see we solved this years and years and years ago. And we've actually, there was a documentary just a couple months ago on who killed Jam Master Jay, and we really didn't participate in it. The truth is the industry is grimy. It's hard. It's not for the faint of heart. It's very, very difficult. And so I'm not going to go into the details of Jam Master Jay. Just do your homework. But I'll say this. It seems like things were a little tougher than we realized with him, even though he helped bring Adidas out of bankruptcy and, paved the way for every pop star in hip hop right now.
And Marley, no matter what the circumstances were, whatever it comes out, the fact of the matter is he's the one who paid with his life. He's the one whose life was taken, and he is the victim here, no matter what the other circumstances are around that. But in terms of his personality, you were with him on the road for hours and hours and hours, and days, many, many days. Tell us about that.
Well, he was definitely a funny guy, man. He had some jokes all the time. He definitely, when it came to going on that stage and commanding that crowd, he was the one that most DJs looked up to. Most DJs looked at, I want to be like Jam Master Jay. I don't want to be like someone. No, I want to be like Jam Master Jay. I want to, control that crowd. I want people to respect me on the streets. Matter of fact, I'm not going to leave the hood. I'm staying in Hollis. I'm staying around the way. We're going to do it the hood way.
Chuck, when you look at Run DMC, you look at Jam Master Jay, what do you see as some of their biggest contributions in terms of the culture?
Well, their contributions are everything. First, let's just talk music. First time gold, first time platinum, pretty much first time everything. First, literally first MTV act, literally just about first everything. And then when you move past that, you just look at the prototype, the DJ, 2 MCs. For the longest time, that was the prototype. So after that, you get EPMD, Mobb Deep, and all these other, and they were like the literal prototype of what a great rap group looked like. You also have to think about what happened before Run DMC, right? So I was talking to Melly Mel, Grandmaster Melly Mel, and one day he wasn't feeling it. Like, he was angry because Run DMC and Jay came through with this whole different swag. Like, they respectfully destroyed everything.
They came before it.
Yeah.
So, but speaking specifically of Jay, he brought that swagger. I'll never forget, when they say rocking without a band, and Jay turns around but moving on, his impact, we've noted his impact as a DJ, but he also had JMJ Records, and he was signing artists, like I said, Onyx, and he was becoming that sort of prototype again for business. And bringing the innovation. So those that know Onyx, they also came out of Queens, and he helped develop them and bring them along. So we're not going to really, we have to, again, chronicle our history and chart our history and really respect, like I said, embrace our roots, as my jacket says, and remember these people, because, without Marley Marl, without Run DMC, we don't get these great acts that come through that, So I just say that Jay is everything to hip, and I mean that literally, everything.
Yeah, as a DJ, DJs were definitely looking at Jam Master Jay as a prototype on how to get up there and rock that crowd. Style-wise, they brought style to the game. You gotta even look at it. My first record was called Sucker DJs. It was a takeoff of Sucker MCs. So we was definitely following them. They were everything to whatever hip hop was at that minute. They were that. They changed it right into that. Style-wise, rocking the crowd. Even the cars that they drove around Queens, hanging out in Queens, giving Queens love, bringing Queens up. It was a very, very big moment and movement for hip hop. They were everything that hip hop needed to be at that moment.